I'm really excited to chat with you. You know that over the course of the pandemic, I've been thinking about you a lot. Your music has affected me. For the listeners who are just tuning in, because who knows how I'll edit the intro, because I make it up as I go along. I'm talking with the incredible Dan Purcell, fan of all podcasts, theme maker for many podcasts, and hit maker as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm really excited to have you on. So it's funny. It's actually been a little more than a year, about a year and a few months since you appeared on Screen Snark, which is the first time I really got to interact with you.
Yeah.
And, you know, back then I was just like, oh, who is this handsome kid who's making some cool music? Like, what's he got going on? And since then, you've gone on to do some incredible stuff, from releasing a pop EP to making a podcast about the making of the pop EP.
Yeah.
To making a TikTok, pretty successful, harmonizing and singing with folks online.
Yeah.
And like now you're working on some new music, which we're going to tease a little bit. And like, I'm really excited to have gotten to know you as an artist. And I guess my first question for you is, like, I've always known you as this person who had a thing for music and liked to make fun tunes.
Sure.
Was music and writing music a thing that you've been doing since you were younger? I mean, you're not that old now, but like, is this a recent thing, or have you always kind of had this fixation with music?
For the last 5 years coming out of school was really when I hit the ground running in terms of writing music. I tried doing it in high school because when you're like an artsy kid in high school, you try and do the thing where you try and write music, but then you find out that it's no, this is not really good. So you kind of put it off to the side. And the funny thing is that my now roommate, who helped me co-produce most of the EP and helped me in the writing sessions, he and I were wrote our first songs together. We were in this thing in high school called Rock Club, and it was at the end of every school day, you had an hour of time where you had a specific club or activity that you did. And so the two of us were in this club called Rock Club, and it was just the two of us, and a couple other people would join from time to time. But basically, the gist of it was you kind of just listen to rock music, rock appreciation kind of thing. And my one friend, I went to this public magnet high school where everybody kind of essentially goes through a pre-college course where you apply to a specific major, you stay on that track for 4 years, and you graduate with a major in a specific field of study. So mine was visual arts. It wasn't any sort of theater or music, because initially I really wanted to be a comic book artist or a concept designer when I was a kid. But my other friend was in the music academy, and that was really my first experience with writing music, performing music, just doing jamming with him. And it feels like for these last 10 to 12 years, I've just been doing those jams basically with him for the majority of it. And it's crazy how I wrote a whole song about it, but the serendipity of life where people just come back into your life if you sort of just are in the same area, have the same sort of energy towards the specific things that you really enjoy, sort of just everything locks into place, and suddenly you are. Literally, a couple nights ago, we were cutting a song. I sent it to a friend of mine who is a pretty a decent sized recording artist in terms of his following, and he was really game to really want to write on the beat, which was really exciting. So it's the fact that we can turn that into something even more fantastic by being able to work on stuff of our own and then being able to spread it across to other artists, which is really fun. Did that answer the question? Because I just kind of took it on a tangent.
It's fine. This is conversational. No pressure.
Okay.
No, it's funny because you mentioned earlier how we all write music, and I obviously have a career in audio now, but I still have I wrote one song. I've never written anything since or before. I wrote one song, just the lyrics, no music, and I still have it. I've shopped it out to some folks to try and turn it into real music, and to no success yet. But this is the only, and So, like, my experience with songwriting personally is very ethereal because I wrote it. I was really upset, and I was in a college class not paying attention, even though I should have been. And I wrote these lyrics, like stream of consciousness. And then when I got home, I kind of fine tuned them. I'm curious with your writing process, since you're someone who's been doing it for a little while now. How much control over the inspiration do you have? Do you find that you're just always thinking about music and then sometimes you'll jot it down, or do you have to really like buckle down and like focus on the process to make the writing happen?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think I'm always open to the possibility of something coming down, because it is something where it genuinely doesn't come from me. I just receive it, and like it could be any sort of thing that kind of just comes to me, and I receive it. And it can come through anything. Like just today, I will tell you, just today I wrote down a lyric. And I don't know what it's going to be in. I don't know what song it's going to be in, but it's just a piece of thing. But I was listening to a podcast. I was listening to Brett Goldstein's podcast. Brett Goldstein is the guy who plays Roy Kent in Ted Lasso. He has a movie podcast called Films to be Buried With. And one of his guests that he had on was Barry Jenkins. And I don't remember the specific conversation, but I think they were talking about like the value of life and how you appreciate life a little bit more when you talk about death and grief and all that kind of thing. And somewhere along the way, Barry Jenkins said something along the lines of like, there's miracles in this world, like somebody's face, the human face. And instantly I heard, boom, there's an idea right there. That's an idea for a song. So I wrote down I have it right here on my phone. I wrote it down on my phone, taking in the miracle of your face. I don't know what that line's gonna be, but it's really cool, and I'm gonna put it somewhere in a song at some point.
I love that. I love that inspiration kind of just strikes you when it strikes you, and I feel like when working on an artistic project, that can just happen. And like, So I of course want to talk about Day by Day, and I want to talk about the writing process, but I do want to urge everyone who's listening after this podcast to go listen to Tape by Tape, which is such a fascinating concept to me, which is your podcast about your album. You did it with the incredible CJ from CJ and Micah fame. And like, I haven't listened to all of it, but I've listened to the first couple of episodes. And what I love about it is that it's really just kind of a natural, you're exploring your own music through the lens of your friend and trying to explain how you did it and like where you got to those places. And I think there's not enough, especially pop stars, sharing the process. You know, the big ones will and talk about the writing process and do interviews, but like this podcast is really you take a microscope to this thing that you labored over to try and explain how and why it happened. And I love that.
Yeah. It was interesting. I think I'm definitely, I love the kind of behind the music type things that you see, whether it's like, I don't know, there are podcasts out there where people will go long and deep with an artist on like the process of how they make stuff. Like I'm particularly a fan of the Jack Antonoff and Charlie Puth episodes of the podcast And the Writer Is, where songwriter Ross Golan sort of sits down with an artist and he has a conversation with them about just their life in music and the process of making music and what that whole experience is like. I find that fascinating in terms of like what people's mindsets are from a conversational standpoint. But then you'll see things like John Bellion and how he sort of just brought a camera guy into the studio with him as he was making his albums, and you just got to see him in his flow state working. And I mean, he's a rare example in the sense that like he could put together a song in like 5 minutes and it would be like a smash hit because he'd be able to reverse engineer, okay, I've got this one idea, I'll go from here to here to here to here to here. And that's kind of the same kind of mental like muscle memory that I'm trying to work up in my brain to get to at some point, where it's like I'll have one of these ideas in my phone and I'll be able to go in and be like, I know exactly where that's going to go in the verse, and I know where the pre-chorus is going to happen, how it's going to sound, all that kind of stuff. He seems to have it almost immediately from the get-go when he brings ideas to the table. That's something that I really want to hone in on a muscle and in as a muscle, because I really do think it's a muscle that you have to really train and flex, because as with any sort of creative craft, you sort of have to be willing to again, along the lines of being open to the possibility of inspiration. Is like
Yeah.
you have to keep flexing that muscle to the point where it's like almost instinctive and reflexive, to where you're like, you're receiving those ideas and you could say, oh, that was a good song, oh, that's a good beat idea, oh, that's a good thing, you know. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do for Tape by Tape specifically, because I think artists should talk about their process a lot more, because you'd be surprised about how many people would be more intrigued and more encouraged to do music as a result of sort of just being like, no, I'm just sitting here trying to learn about my everyday life and sort of synthesize the lessons that I've learned over a set period of years and create something based off of that.
Yeah, well, and Day by Day is absolutely that. I mean, I've sung its praises online as much as I can. Like from when I first heard Serendipity to hearing the entire record, what I love about this album is it helps to know you, for me personally, because I think you're a really cool guy and I love your personality, and like I think that it shines through in your music. But what I think someone who doesn't know you will get from it is like, this is an education on Dan. This whole EP is you learning to be you, and in the way that a lot of us go through, where I'm going to do this thing. But like the whole album is about you essentially writing this album to a degree and like figuring out what it's like to be a pop singer. And I really dig that. I think the song that speaks to me the most, even though it's a different decade, is Can't See Past 30.
Sure.
I'm approaching 40.
Yeah.
And like what I love about Can't See Past 30 is this idea of like, the whole song is, I can't see where my future's headed. I don't know where I'm going. And then the resolution is you understanding, like, it's okay. I can see because I don't have to know. Right. And I think that's kind of a universal thing no matter what. But in the 30s and 40s, like, especially for me, I found podcasting in my late 20s and early 30s. And now I'm at that stage again where it's like, I don't know what's the next step.
Sure.
And I think it's a very universal feeling. Is this something you think about a lot still, even after writing that song, like that you don't know? Or do you have a better idea of your path and the things you want to do, having exercised that song from your body?
Yeah. I think about it all the time. I think I just have less trepidation about it. Mm-hmm. You know, we're all kind of, I was just talking with my roommate about this. We all kind of have our own like little ships of like our own persona that we're all trying to sail for to reach specific destinations. And maybe the destination isn't specific, like there isn't one specific destination, but you just get to like from island to island over time. But I mean, you have all these different tools along the way that you're sort of trying to figure yourself out and figure out who you are in context of life happening in the ever-changing sea of life, you know? You have your compass that kind of has this like it's almost like if you equate a compass to like therapy or some sort of psychological evaluation of yourself, self-awareness, some sort of discovery through that, be it like through like conscious therapy, some sort of treatments or faith, religion, all those kinds of things. You got the compass. You have your North Star, and you can figure out how to get to, you kind of have the sense of direction. But you need a bunch of other things as well to sort of anchor you and figure out how to carry your way through. The hull of the ship, the whole body of the ship is kind of like your crew, your clan, your people that you're surrounding yourself with, your friends and family. And sort of the hull is kind of like the maintenance of yourself, your physical self, your emotional self, your mental self. And then you have other different tools like your sextant, the wheel, the steering, all those, the sails, all those kinds of things. You're all just trying to do that to try and like navigate this boat through life, you know? And there's no one straight path to get to the places that you're meant to go to, if you're meant to go to any specific places at all. And I find that so fascinating, so beautiful that we each kind of have our own little ship that we're piloting and figuring out how to get to where we need to be. And the trepidation of not knowing where it's going to end up is a lot less now, because I realize it's like I'm on a ship going in the direction that I'm going in. I'm gonna get there eventually. That's the whole beauty of the journey, is that there are going to be these things, these twists and turns that might be good, might be bad, but it'll eventually it'll lead you to the different destinations that you're meant to dock at, if you will, for your ship.
Sure. Yeah. I think that there's an insightfulness to your music that I think is really important in pop music, and why artists like Taylor Swift and Carly Rae Jepsen, and to name drop 1,000 others, like find success is those artists who are speaking from a real place. Everyone loves their fair share of pop music that seems kind of fabricated. We've all liked that because if it's catchy, it's catchy.
Totally.
But like, what I love about this EP is that every song feels like something someone can relate to, even if it's not the direct experience. And like, what I love about Nobody Knows My Name is that it's an interesting way to look. Like, we've grown up in a time where celebrity is a goal, right? Whereas when folks were younger, you wanted to be a musician, you wanted to be a mechanic, or you wanted to be an actor. You didn't want to be famous.
Yeah.
And what I like about Nobody Knows My Name is something that I get a sense of you from your personality is like, you're doing this because you really you feel this in you and you want to make it.
Right.
If you became a famous singer tomorrow, sure, I'm sure you'd be fine with it. But like, ultimately, that's not the goal. That song is all about like, nobody knows my name and I don't care. Like, I want to do things. I want to make stuff, but I'll trade the fame for continuing to be able to do the thing that I love.
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, even just yesterday, I realized, I was like, when I'm sitting in the audience of a show and I'm watching somebody perform up on stage, it's not that I want to replace the person, you know? Right. I don't want to replace the person who's up there, because the person up there is doing a fantastic job. I want to be up there with them. I want to support them. I want to communicate with them, because that's like, music is part of the way of how I communicate with other people. It's like a universal language that we can all just sort of channel. And I love the sense of community that brings. And I think that's really the main goal. Like, I think that's the aspirational aspect of it, of music, of being in the entertainment industry. I feel like it's very misconstrued in the sense that it's like, I don't think when people first see performers and like say, I want to be like them, I don't think they want to be like them in the sense that like they want this like really complicated and really challenging, harrowing job of appealing to people and like needing to satisfy the demands of other people. They just want to be in community with those people. They want to be in. They want to feel like that they like that's a place where they feel like they belong, where they're at home. So like, they want to figure out a way to get there, to be on that stage with those people. I mean, like, I'll speak for myself in terms of like listening to Bono for the first time on one of the first CDs that I ever owned was like that U2 album from 2004 that played on all the iPod commercials, you know?
Yeah.
I was really compelled by his voice. Something drew me to him, and telling the stories that he was telling in the voice and and like the vocal affects that he was. It really compelled me to be like, man, that's really cool. I want to be up there. I want to do that thing. I don't think I realized I want to do that. Like, I want to be able to contribute something of that caliber to where it was like people are so like in it, where they're like, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be, you know?
Yeah, completely. I'm curious, you mentioned Bono and some of the early CDs that you had. There is a bit of an age disparity between us, but I'll leave that alone. People can do the math later. But like, what are some of the artists that you grew up listening to? Like, for me, I always like to talk about how I have a lot of favorite musicians, but I will never forget the first time I heard Another One Bites the Dust by Queen and went, what is this?
Yeah.
That sounds like a video game and a rock opera all at once.
Right.
Like Freddie Mercury broke my brain for music in a way that no other artist has since, I think, because it was so unique and has affected all the stuff I've done over the years. Are there artists that kind of really spoke to you on a molecular level growing up that you're like, oh, this is me?
Yeah. I mean, my whole musical history started very disparately. Like, I think I talk about this. I talk about this with my friend Hansel all the time because they are very much cut from the same cloth. But I mean, I grew up in the era of like Sonic Adventure 2 Battle and Pokemon soundtracks. You know, a lot of that is were like defining albums of my childhood in terms of growing up and like experiencing music for the first time, not necessarily knowing I was experiencing music for the first time.
Right.
But when I started really paying more attention to music, I mean, like there's this whole like map that sort of makes up my DNA that bounces from U2 to a lot of classic rock bands like Aerosmith, AC/DC, all those kinds of groups. And then you bump over to like the van rock era of the 2000s where you have bands like Coldplay, The Fray, John Mayer, all those people. And then you bounce over to like, I mean, like I remember the first time I heard Kiss by Prince in the car on a car ride on the way home to school. I thought it was a modern record. I thought it was like something that like Maroon 5 just put out or something like that.
Right.
But then somebody said no, it was Prince, and that was made in like the 80s, and I was like, it sounded timeless. It sounded completely timeless, and that really stuck with me. Of course, you have kind of like your intense phase where you have a little bit heavier music, but I mean like. I had like very intellectually heavy music, so I was listening to like your Dream Theaters, your Dragon Forces, all those kinds of things where they're like people are like shredding for their lives on there. And then I discovered a cappella music in high school. That was the moment, like watching five guys get up on stage and sing with no instrumental accompaniments and being compelled by their vocals. Again, the whole thread of like sounds in terms of the defining sounds of my whole childhood to adolescent experience with music is defining voices. And when I first heard five dudes get up and sing without any sort of vocal accompaniment and being compelled by their voices, I knew it was something, again, it was one of those moments where I wanted to be on stage with them to sing.
Yeah.
And so that was where I started learning about contemporary a cappella, arrangements, all those kinds of things, performing that choral music, all that kind of stuff. And I started getting really, really interested in that. And all those things sort of congealed together and have sort of just been propelling me through college, through this whole process of post-college, getting work, making music, all that kinds of stuff. I think the last big artist to really have an impact on me was all of the work that sort of some of the New York artists, the more modern New York artists have been doing recently, like your John Bellions, your Brass Tracks, your Lawrence the Bands, all those kinds of people who are sort of really, I think what they're really doing in terms of like crafting some sort of that sense of community that I'm looking for, where everybody's sort of like a participant and the idea is greater than themselves in terms of the stuff that they make with other people and for other people. I think that has had the greatest impact on me recently as of the last few years. But yeah, there was just like this sort of like wild line that started all the way back and like with like Mario music, Sonic music, Pokemon music, all that kinds of stuff.
I mean, those songs are some of the greatest stuff, and I won't hear any Crush 40 slander. Crush 40 is one of the greatest bands of all time.
Yeah. I was just saying today, I was like, Rina Sawayama and Clarity should be on the next Sonic record with Crush 40, because I feel like, did you hear that cover of Enter Sandman by Metallica?
I did.
It would not sound at all different, or like it wouldn't be out of place on a Sonic soundtrack.
I agree 100%. I was one of those people that when they did the live Sonic concert, I watched it on YouTube crying. Like they played the Sonic and Knuckles theme and I just lost it.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting when you talk to people who have played video games and like music versus anyone else. And because I think people who don't play video games just don't think about the soundtracks a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because especially since modern games are like showing off the graphics and the story and all of that stuff, it's very easy as someone who doesn't play games to see past that. But like one of my favorite games of all time is Chrono Trigger, and like it has some of the best compositions ever in RPG history in that game. And I think a lot of my, like, I listened to Magus's theme from that game, and I'm like, oh, this song is why I like salsa and heavy metal and like rock and roll, because it's all in there.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, you referencing Pokemon and Mario and Sonic especially, those games have some of the most iconic music in gaming history. And I can absolutely,
musically they're probably the most like orally famous like music that of our lifetimes, and will be, which is crazy to think of.
Yeah, totally. And like I can absolutely hear that in some of the composition of Day by Day, you know, like because there is some stuff that's more electronic, more R&B, more pop.
Yeah.
When you were writing these songs for this EP, did you like, because Serendipity to me, like it sounds like a dance song, right? And there must have been some intent for it to be kind of dancey, but do you think genre when you're writing, especially the music side of it, or does it just kind of fall into place?
I don't think of genre, which is weird to say because, funny enough, I feel like the nature of what the album is going to be, this like, technically that was an EP. This is going to be my like debut album. That's going to
your first full length.
I'm trying to work on now for 2022. Weirdly enough, a lot of those songs are starting to skew more towards R&B, surf rock, yacht rock type avenues, which is really funny. I don't think when I wrote the songs on Day by Day, I really wasn't thinking of any sort of genre. I kind of just wanted to let the song sort of dictate what it wanted to be. So like, I mean, Find Your Song has its history years prior to Day by Day. It was originally an electronic song that a friend of mine and I co-wrote together for his sort of collection of albums that he was doing in collaboration with a bunch of people. And then I kind of I carried it with me, and it was like the thing I knew I wanted to like reinterpret it in some way. So I reinterpreted it, made it a little bit more John Bellion-y. Like that was honestly a lot of it was like I found artists like John Bellion, Billie Eilish, Phineas, all those sorts of people in the modern age are sort of just genre-less in the sense that they wear their influences and the artists that influence them and the genres that influence them on their sleeve, but they're all intertwined in the same music. So you could hear crazy trap 808s on a song like Conversations with My Wife by John Bellion, these really messy, loud, like booming trap 808s. But then all at the same time, you're hearing like up in the high end range, you're hearing this beautiful electric violin doing this beautiful melody. And then you have like this chugging bass line with some guitars in there as well. And just like this cacophony of sound that just doesn't sound like music from like 10, 20 years ago. It sounds like music from 100 years from now that we're supposed to discover at some point, you know?
Yeah.
I think that was really the aim of what I was going for. It was like I was very much inspired by like music that was trying to be from the year 3000. So that's what I was thinking of when I was writing some of those songs. Whether or not it actually like translated in the actual process, you know, is up for debate because, you know, I that was my first one, so a lot of it was kind of just trial and error, you know. It's a lot of the lessons I learned from making that EP I'm taking into this next one. And like some of these records that I'm putting together, like it's crazy how much like a year and a half just like changes, and like just getting a lot of feedback from other people who are a little bit more experienced really changes how you produce a record. And just like this next collection of records are going to be some of my favorites that I've ever written, you know?
I mean, I love that kind of progression of evolution, though, and like, of course, it makes sense that you wouldn't think about genre specifically when writing, unless
Right.
you're a very genre-defined band. Like, I'm sure Metallica very much thinks about heavy metal when they're writing music. Although,
Sure.
even then, who knows?
Yeah.
But like, I think what's the beauty of the versatility of your music is that it does feel kind of genreless. Like Serendipity is a dance song because I want it to be a dance song because I
Yeah.
dance to it.
Yeah.
But it can also be an electronic song. It is a very much a pop song. Like it fits in these different places. And I think that like some of my favorite modern artists are people who kind of defy genre. Like I love K-Flay, and K-Flay
Yeah.
I heard as a hip hop artist because
Sure.
her first record is very steeped in hip hop, but her second and third records are pop and R&B and like she just did a song with Tom Morello for her EP. Like she is clearly not defined by the genre that she started in, and I think that that's where the future of music is headed. The
Yeah.
kinds of work that you're doing and artists like that are doing is trying to let the music be defined by who you are. And this is Dan Purcell music. It's not pop. It's not
Right.
hip hop. It's not rock. And like people are going to put it in a box anyway, because that's how we feeble humans comprehend this stuff.
Sure.
But I think that there's definitely a futurism in your music. The fact that you are kind of just going song to song, expressing yourself.
Yeah.
And whatever genre it falls into, it falls into.
Yeah. Totally. That's
And you're talking about this next album. So I've been fortunate to hear some of your new music. You sent it to me. And so I want to talk about, if we may, Marathon a little bit, which is one of the upcoming songs that will be on your next record. First of all, when I heard Marathon, I was like, oh, Dan has grown. Like I could hear it just from that track to the previous EP.
Yeah.
So talk to me about writing Marathon and how that felt different from the previous songs.
So, believe it or not, the hook itself is like 3 or 4 years old.
Really?
Yeah. I had gotten a beat from another producer, and I wrote that hook specifically for that beat. But then he was like, "Nah, that hook is not a fit for the beat," and so I had to think of something else. But nothing really came of it. But I held on to that hook because I knew that it was something. I knew that it was something. Again, it was one of those things of like, you put an idea down and you might not know necessarily what specifically it's going to be, but it's going to turn into something eventually. Fast forward like a couple of years, maybe like, I think it was like when I really started concentrated work on this next album was like middle of pandemic quarantine. I think a lot of us were really evaluating our relationships in life, like our relationship to who we are, to other people. And I was doing very much the same, like figuring out a lot of, like, sort of doing a lot of self-work, a lot of realization and internal work on myself. And I really wanted to, at some point along the line, I decided consciously that I was like, I'm going to write a record that is essentially going to be like, at least like 9 to 10 love songs to a person in the person in my life that is yet to exist. That was the concept that I initially came up with in my head. I was like, I've got some of these ideas about like I don't even know how to write a love song, you know? Or if I do know how to write a love song, it is a very weird love song. It's not going to be your traditional love song of like the Beatles where it's like, she loves you, yeah, 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 kind of thing.
Right.
So that's where kind of the genesis of Marathon came from. It's like that sort of sentiment of like, who am I going to be in the context of a relationship with somebody else? And a lot of the records on this album sort of capture that. I mean, with Marathon, it's more of speaking to the nature of commitment, being able to say, this is more than just some sort of like crazy fling in your life. It's a full-blown commitment that I wanna go on this adventure with, you know, you, and go through the highs and the lows of life as a result of that. I think that's incredibly important, especially when you're talking about committing to somebody in a relationship and committing in a lifelong partnership. It's kind of just being able to understand that there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, and you don't know when they're going to show up, but I'm going to be keeping pace by your side all through the thick and the thin, you know? that's where the genesis of Marathon kind of came from. And then a lot of this album, I also really wanted to try and get a bunch of new perspectives, not just my own, on the record. So a handful of these songs are going to be collaborations with artists that I'm really excited about, like artists, either rappers or singers that like are really incredible performers, really incredible craftspeople, that I really wanted to get involved in. So I found out that like one of my favorite rappers, B Keys, who had done a lot of the features on John Bellion's work, and I found out about his work through John Bellion. He was like, "I'll do a feature on any of your on your song if you want it. Just send an email to my management and we'll try and set something up." I saw like a post about it on his socials page, so I sent them an email, and they were like, I sent them basically the beat and the hook, and I was like, "What I'm gonna do is I wrote the hook. I have this beat. Can you write a verse?" And then from there, I'm going to write a verse based on your verse. And that was kind of the way that the whole process of the song came about. We kind of went backwards, whereas like I had the hook first, then I made the beat, then I sent the song to Keys and his team, and he laid down a verse, and then he sent it back to me, and then I finished it. I wrote out the verse, and I finished up the end section, made sure it flowed a little bit more cohesively. And that was how that all came together. And it was one of the coolest synergistic ways of trying to like put things together. And that was kind of the mentality I wanted to approach the creation process for this album. Like I've got a couple of records. I've got a record I'm working on with one of my favorite artists from around here. Her name is Cookie. She's fantastic singer, rapper, all-around performer, musician, like instrumentalist, like really good. I have another record that I'm in the works with, which is an incredible vocalist out in Los Angeles. Her name is Christine Noel. She has this like jaw-droppingly beautiful voice, and her pen game is so good, so incredibly good. I highly recommend listening to the song "Dreams" by Christine Noel if you have not heard it, or anybody listening, because it is breathtaking. It will like destroy you and put you back together again. It is that good of a record. But yeah, those are the kinds of I wanted to get like the coolest, best people I possibly could for this thing, and like through another instance of serendipity, Brass Tracks, Ivan specifically, did some production on Marathon. I sent the song to him, and he listened to it on one of his Twitch streams. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of gotten to know each other through over the course of the pandemic, through the internet, and through sort of I became a moderator for one of his for his Discord server. Really was involved with like supporting the Twitch streams, supporting the artists that would submit stuff onto the Twitch streams. Mm-hmm. And so I had been submitting stuff, and I submitted Marathon, and I had done it several times, and he was like, "You know what? Your drums aren't hitting as hard as they should be. Send the song to me, and after I listen through everybody else, I'm going to do this live on Twitch. I'm going to produce drums for you. I'm just gonna program drums for you, and I'm gonna send them back to you, and you can have them." And it was incredible. Like
that's amazing.
It's amazing. It was like now I have freaking Ivan Jackson from Brass Tracks as like a production credit on this record, with another like dream collaboration with B Keys, like a rapper who's been featured on all these incredible pop albums, who's made incredible rap albums of his own. It's amazing. Just like, and like that, like I wanted to have like a high caliber of performer, producer, creator on this thing, and through serendipity yet again, I'm getting it. So just piece by piece. That's what, and I'm really going like incrementally as slow as I possibly can to try and really get these records correct. Like actually, I'll tell you this, on another record called Listen and Love, it's a sort of a record about like how we're really like, I don't know, I was trying to write different things about like love from the masculine perspective, because a lot of things have been written about love from the masculine perspective, but I feel like there is no sort of modern experience that has sort of been thrown in, you know?
Yeah.
And so with one of the songs, like Listen and Love, I wrote like a ballad that I really would love to be sung by JoJo or an incredible R&B singer like that. I really wanted to encapsulate this idea of like, no, we're really supposed to sit with people and listen to them and understand their experiences and where they come from. And that's really what relationship is all about. So I wrote a song about that, and I'm really fortunate to have gotten Brian Matolius to do strings on that song.
Hell yeah.
Just by nature of like having known all of the people through the Infinity podcast and the stuff that he's done for Patrick's videos.
Yeah.
Just knowing, just having that connection and being able to reach out to him, being like, yeah, I think you could do a really good job with the strings on this. And he was like, totally, send it to me. And he did these strings, and they're fantastic. That's the kind of caliber of person and performer that I'm looking for this album, and I really want to, I'm hoping that this sampler of 2 songs is sort of just enough to hold people over to be like, I'm really working hard on this, trying to make sure that it is the most high quality experience that you could possibly imagine, and one that is going to be really meaningful for people to listen to, in the sense of like, this is somebody who's really working hard on himself in order to be able to sort of be in better relationship with other people, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it seems like collaboration is important to you, and I think that's why we connected so strongly, because I think there are a lot of ways to collaborate, right? Like, I love having you as a guest. We had you as a guest on Screen Snark.
Yeah.
I guarantee you'll be a guest on something in the future. Like, knowing that you like video games, now I have to bring you on to talk about classic video game music on my video game podcast.
Yes.
Like, that's it. Like, that's the decision.
Yes.
But, like, I think that what the pandemic has shown me, and I'm getting the sense that it showed you as well, is like, no matter how many people we live with or how many people are around us during that time, it's still very easy to feel lonely during this time of isolation.
Yeah.
Arguably, we should still be isolating on some degree for sure.
Yeah.
Keep wearing masks, get vaccinated, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
I say it all the time. But like, I think it sounds like for some people, the loneliness pushes you more lonely. And then for some people, it pushes you to reach out more. And you seem like a very empathetic person, and like it sounds like writing during this time has made you want to reach out more and collaborate more and connect more.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've learned a lot about yourself from the pandemic? I feel like we've all kind of learned how we've changed and how we may never return to, like, we can never be the version of ourselves before the pandemic now.
Surely.
It's different, and we've learned a lot. Do you feel like that's affected your songwriting and your artistry going through this experience?
Yeah. I mean, and I think at the same time, it's like, I don't necessarily want to be the same person that I was
Right.
going into the pandemic. Just because I learned so much. I figured out, I've been listening to so many different things and sort of learning from new mentors about stuff that where it's like, I'm starting to understand myself down to like a biological level, where it's like, I am doing these things because I am doing these things in my life because I am biologically predisposed to do them. It's very,
Right.
it's crazy. It thinking about it like that is like, wow,
What?
we really literally were born to serve a purpose, and
Right.
I think that's really beautiful. I think that's one of the other things that's made me realize is that we're all kind of like, we were all brought into this world to serve a specific purpose, and whether or not you believe that or not, I think it's a beautiful thing, because we're still going to serve each other regardless, and I think that's really what the beautiful thing about it is. At the end of the day, it's like, yeah, it's just we're all doing these things because it's almost like we were like designed to do that.
Sure, and I think it's totally okay, like going back to your sentiment about not being able to see past 30. It's this idea that we grew up with media that said, you're gonna figure out what you want to do when you grow up, and you're gonna do it, right? Like in every TV show and every movie, it's like, I'm 5 and I've always loved acting, and so I'm gonna be an actor. And I'm finding as I get older, that's not really true for a lot of people. Like, I don't know anyone who's doing what they love now that, like, when they were 12, like 10 years old, they were like, I'm going to do that thing. Like,
Yeah.
I've always liked disc jockeys and radio and music, but I didn't predict I would be a podcaster, mostly because podcasts didn't exist when I was a kid. But
Sure.
like, I feel like we're living in a world now, especially through the pandemic, that we're like, no, you can kind of pivot and do whatever you want as long as you want to do it. And I think that's only going to become more common as folks around our age get older.
Sure.
Before we start to wrap up, I would love to ask you a little bit of non-music related things. We talked a little bit about movies in the pre-show. You, of course, are the friend of all pods. Of all pods. That's such a good title. You've been a guest on CJ and Micah's Below Freezing. I have as well, which is an incredible podcast. But I do want to talk a little bit about movies. Have there been any movies during the pandemic that you've watched and be like, this is a great movie. I can't believe I didn't watch this movie sooner. Or like any media that you've gotten into over the pandemic that you just didn't have time before, that's like really kind of changed things for you?
Oh yeah. I feel like a lot is said about this show, and it's very timely in the sense that like they just announced the live action adaptation series for Netflix, but I recently got into Cowboy Bebop.
Yes.
It's incredible. Like it is incredible.
Sure is.
Like now I understand. I feel like I didn't do it early, and I do that with a lot of things. Is like I don't do it when people are really really talking about it because I feel like that diminishes the hype a little bit behind it. Like you don't get to necessarily formulate your own opinion of it because you essentially just don't. You have all these other sort of contradicting opinions coming in and being like setting these expectations for you, so you don't have any expectations to sort of be blown away by.
Yeah.
But Cowboy Bebop is really blowing me away right now. Every time my roommate and I watch an episode, we're just kind of sitting back and going like, "Wow, that was incredible."
That's a show that I did like. I had always known music was important to me in TV and movies, but that was the first show that I watched that I went, oh, yeah, this couldn't exist without Tank. This couldn't exist without its soundtrack.
Right.
And like even more so when the movie came out. Like it's just, and like I've never considered myself a jazz fan, and yet I listen to Tank and I go, this is incredible. This is the pinnacle. This is great. And yeah, I mean the stories they're telling, the animation, yeah, you're in for a hell of a ride since you're not even done yet. Like just you wait, it gets better.
Yeah. Great. I'm very excited. In terms of movies, I discovered Streets of Fire over the pandemic.
Classic.
That was so good. I know CJ didn't have as good of a time watching it as I did, but like, wow, nobody makes movies like that anymore.
No, they don't.
That was really cool. We mentioned Gleaming the Cube. Which I'll be on Below Freezing talking about in a few weeks. Actually, next week probably.
So it'll probably be out by the time folks hear this. So
Yeah,
go back to Below Freezing and listen to that as well. Tape by Tape and Below Freezing. Go check it out.
Gleaming the Cube is a skateboarding like murder mystery kind of thing where like it's such a strange premise of like these skateboarding kids in California stop this anti-communist Vietnam movement from selling shipments of guns and surplus supplies to the government. It's insane.
It's wild.
And Tony Hawk is in it.
I know. The Tony
Hawk, and maybe like one of his only two movie appearances that he's ever been in, and the only other one I've actually been on Below Freezing to talk about, which is Max Keeble.
That's amazing. You talked about both Tony Hawk movies. Brilliant.
Yes.
Well done.
Yes. So those movies were definitely some standouts. Of course, Ted Lasso. I will extol the virtues of Ted Lasso for years and years to come because it is a fantastically, beautifully constructed show. A lot of the same sentiment that I try to capture in my songs. If I was a show, it would be Ted Lasso.
All right. All right. I like that. That's a good way to sum it up.
Yeah.
I've been asking folks a lot, and you kind of hinted at this with my previous question, but I've been asking folks, the pandemic sucks, and it's been hard for all of us. And 2020 was hard for a myriad of other reasons beyond just the pandemic.
Sure.
But I've been trying to focus on the good that's come out of that time. Like for me personally, being able to refocus on my podcast, build the brands that I'm working on. Mm-hmm. Is there like a standout, really good moment that came during the pandemic?
I think a lot of the communities I discovered as a result of, and doubling down on the communities that I was already kind of involved in. Like, I know that, like CJ, Micah, and our friend Megan are kind of in a group chat together. So we got to do like watch parties over the pandemic, just sitting at home talking on Discord, watching movies like that. And CJ would put together trailer packs of like different trailers that were coming out as like
amazing.
Coming attractions. That was really fun to do. I was really heartened by the brass tracks community that sort of popped up over the course of the pandemic. Ivan started streaming, I think, it was like a couple months ago, like a year ago, a couple months ago. So it was like he reached his first year doing streaming, and just the community that came out of that. How everybody's just really encouraging and wanting each other to do better as musicians, and striving to craft the best sort of stuff, and almost sort of in almost sort of a way like it's like a friendly competition where it's like you get the so good you're laughing. It's kind of feeling working with like hearing these people do their work and produce their music. So shout out to the Brass Tracks Discord. And I will say I'd been living with my folks for the last 5 years, and it was only just after the like sort of as we were coming out from this right before this like third or fourth wave happened, I moved. And so the pandemic essentially was like the last time that I really got to hang out with my parents in the sense of like they were my roommates for a period of time. So I really value and treasure that time as well, being able to treasure that time with family, knowing that the relationships are going to change now that I have moved out, and that my younger brother will probably move out eventually because he's going to be graduating college soon. I really being able to value that. And really being able to value the family time that I was able to have, and have been able to have with extended family as well. I think that was also really important. And it just made me think about a lot of like sort of the intentionality with which I want to bring my own friendships now. It's like there are friends in my life that I would consider like chosen family, and I really want to make sure that that's maintained. And I think that was definitely a perspective shifter for me in terms of what I thought about in the pandemic. And then just the whole self-development thing of like understanding myself better, learning how to grow and be better. I think that's incredibly important, especially if you're going to just try and be a functioning human in society.
Yeah, no, I can't speak highly enough to online communities. Like I've talked about this before, but like I met a bunch of folks at PAX East right before the pandemic, a bunch of games journalist folks and podcasters that are really cool. And like over the next year and plus, since we're way past a year at this point, like we had a Discord of just like a handful of us just talking every Thursday, playing games together, chatting, bitching about the games industry. And like that, like I consider those folks to have become like my very good friends, and I didn't know them a year ago. And I think online community is so key, and it always had this taboo, right? When we were younger, like meeting people online, you don't know them. Yeah. Like that's just not a true sentiment anymore. And I think you can't always know if someone's an axe murderer or not, but for the most part, for the most part, we can read people pretty well. And I think online community don't really have that stigma anymore. Same with working from home, I hope at least. Like now people will understand you can be just as productive rather at your own computer as
If
you
not
could in
more.
an office.
Oh
if
my
not
goodness.
more. If not more.
I've taken on more responsibilities at work, and wow, the stuff I'm able to get done working from home is incredible. Incredible. I love it. I love that I'm probably just gonna, like, we switched to a hot seat only place in my office as well. So it's like
Yeah.
we're primarily going to be work from home, but occasionally go in, and I think that's a perfect balance to strike, because it just gives you more time to be, instead of having to be for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Dan, I appreciate so much you taking the time to chat with me today. I can't sing your praises enough. I think you're going to be a mega star. It's just a matter of time.
Stop it.
If y'all have been listening all this time and you still haven't heard Day by Day, it's literally everywhere. Look it up, Dan Purcell, Day by Day. Before we have you sign off the show, I would love for you right now, Dan, to tell folks where they can find your music and where they can find you on the internet.
You can find me anywhere you listen to music. At least I think so. That's the way that DistroKid kind of pitches it. Is like you can put it anywhere. So if you listen to Spotify, if you listen to Apple Music, Tidal, SoundCloud, I don't know, Deezer. Who listens to music on Deezer? Somehow I submit music to Deezer and I never know what it is, but it always says send music to Deezer. It's weird. But yeah, that's where you can find me. I will be releasing, I can safely say now that Marathon, along with its B-side, Ever After, is going to be dropping on September 24th.
Cool.
So I think around the time that people are going to be listening to this episode, if I'm not mistaken. So
yes.
If that is true, a pre-save feature should be somewhat available somewhere, because I'm going to do that the week of the release. So if you are listening to this and it is before the 24th, please go and pre-save Marathon. You have no idea. It's weird. Like I don't know how it's a strange world where it's like the amount of pre-saves that Spotify receives gives them better incentive to put the songs on playlists. So that's definitely something that I learned in the past just year or so releasing this music. So if you dig what you hear on Day by Day and you want to hear more, please pre-save, because that always helps, because then that'll lead me to get in more gigs as a writer and a producer, because ultimately I think that's what I want to do, is I want to produce for other people. And if you want to hear what I have to say about the music industry, if you want to hear me talk about Gleaming the Cube more, or Streets of Fire, or what did I talk about recently? Oh my gosh, I talked about my theories for Spider-Man No Way Home, in that the Doctor Strange that casts the spell in No Way Home is actually the evil Doctor Strange from What If. And that's the tie there. It's like, he's chasing after Peter Parker in the multiverse. He's not trying to save him there. That's my theory. There was also a really cool theory about body swapping, like having Tom Holland's Peter Parker jump through the different universes into the bodies of the other Peter Parkers. Very cool stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that.
But yeah, you can hear me ramble about that more on my Twitter. The Dan Purcell. That's the Dan Purcell. There's also my Instagram handle. I don't post there as much because I primarily focus on like music related things there. I have a bunch of like fake posters that I put up for a mailing list. That's also a good point to bring up. I now have a mailing list.
Yes.
If you sign up at my SoundWhip link in my bios, you can sign up for my mailing list, and I'll send you the link as well, so you can include it in the show notes, because that'll be the easiest way to get in touch with me. because I will send out sporadic emails every now and then talking about, hey, this thing is coming out. Let's do a thing together or something like that. At least that's what I'm going to try and do with this. I've only sent out one email so far, but more will come.
Amazing. Well, go check all that out. Go follow Dan everywhere. He's amazing. Dan, before we wrap up, I have a saying on the show. It's the saying itself is music is life and life is good. It's this idea. It was born out of my music show, which is now on indefinite hiatus because I won't let it ever really die. But it's this idea that I came up with of like, as long as you're making something, as long as you're creating, no matter how hard and bad life can be, you can find solace in that.
Yeah.
So if you could say those magic words, we will end the show.
Gladly. Music is life, and life is good, and just take life day by day.
That's it for this episode of CPOV Autographs. Our theme music is by Michael Kill. Our logo was designed by Case Aiken and Joey Mons. If you liked the show, please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. It's a great way to help us reach more listeners. Questions, comments, or guest recommendations? Email mr.nat.storm@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at CPOV Autographs. Thank you so much for listening.
So, I have a question. Have you ever wanted to get into comics, but you just didn't know where to start? Well, welcome to Comics Quest. I'm JD Martin, and every week I sit down with a guest to talk a comic that I think anybody can pick up and start their comics reading journey. We take a look at psychedelic sci-fi, fantastical action, heart-wrenching love stories, and of course, superheroes. So check us out at certainpov.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.